Hey everybody, how's it going? Hopefully everything's sounding okay for you guys. I know we've had that times where the audio sounds all wonky and stuff, but it looks like we're making we're like I'm doing anything. Looks like SpaceX is making some good progress here, so I need to update this because they are well into the fuel up procedure for Starship. So give me a second here. I'll update our side graphic. Of course, since this is the same vehicle, I think we can safely say that the pointy end is still up and the flaming end is still down. That's going to pretty much be constantly reaffirmed until they move it, and then we'll have to probably recheck the orientation. But hi, how is everybody? We're back at it again. We were just, earlier this morning, SpaceX attempted to do a static fire. They loaded it up. It seemed like there was some kind of issue. Oh, I know, we're still working on the clock, guys. I'm sorry. Literally working on a totally different layout here. Didn't quite get it finished in time. But next time, I promise, next time you see this live, there will be an entirely new interface, and you guys will love it. It will have a clock, but I am sorry. Just it's about 30 minutes or so, maybe like 20 to 30. It's kind of hard to tell, but they are pretty far along in the fueling process, so we're catching it just in time. Great job to Rachel and Jean for getting going and getting it out there ready to go. So yeah. So just a fun reminder here on what everything multiple steamy ends sideways. Absolutely. Young Cotter, thanks for the membership. So here we'll do the quick rundown. So this morning SpaceX attempted to fire the Starship prototype, serial number 4. Today they are looking, they reset. They had some people kind of go out and check it out and tweaked a few things, maybe dinged on it with a hammer, unplugged it and plugged it back in. And now they're ready to go again for another attempt at static fire. This particular vehicle, this test prototype, has serial number 20 installed. It's the 20th version or 20th build of this version of Raptor. So we think they're probably around 30 or so now. They were at 26 about a month ago, and they seem to be producing them very quickly, which is good because they're going to need to be producing Raptor engines extremely quickly. If the Super Heavy booster is to utilize 31 of them, they're going to have an awful lot of Raptor engines and making them very, very, very quickly. So okay, I can increase it a little bit here, but I just don't want to block any of that stuff. So there we go. Hopefully that's okay for you guys. I just want to make sure I'm not blocking the beautiful views of the condensation. I feel like every stream we need to mention what the flame is right there above my head. Again, that is the methane flare. From this vantage point, it's kind of hard to tell, but that is a ways behind all of the tanks and stuff. When you look at the other views from, Lab Padre, from NASA Spaceflight with Boca Chica Mary, you can tell that the flare stack is quite a ways away from all the tanks. But what that is as the liquid methane boils off into gas, they just light it on purpose to keep it from developing large pockets of methane, and they burn it off also, so it's just produces CO2 and water vapor. And there you go. So yeah, so hopefully today we're within about half hour or so of seeing a successful static fire. Again, this will be the third static fire for serial number 4 prototype. So again, sorry, I feel like I'm having to repeat myself a lot, but I want to make sure if you're tuning in and you're not familiar, this is where we're at as far as Starship prototype. Serial number 4 looks like it's basically going to be repeating a lot of the lessons of Starhopper last year. Starhopper is the only prototype to have left the ground, at least on purpose, under the propulsion and power of a Raptor engine. But this will be after static fires here. Hopefully they might be doing some kind of gimbal test, and they'll be testing out the RCS thrusters, and then they will do a 150 meter hop, very similar to Starhopper's hop last year. And if that goes well, serial number 5 will roll out, and they'll start doing substantially more advanced hops. But this is just testing out that they indeed made a structurally sound rocket using this new welding technique, using all of the other things, and this is getting closer to flight ready when they're using this new manufacturing technique and everything. So yeah. Arvin Nilsson, thank you for your tip, asking, Water Tower Watch Day, is this the new Groundhog Day? Honestly, yes. That's pretty much what this is. So it sounds like there's a chance they could do the 150-meter hop already this week, but that would be assuming everything goes well here on the testing. You guys know how this stuff is. Just because there's a road closure does not necessarily mean that things are going to work out well. But so Andrew Elliott asks, does serial number 4 actually have RCS at this point? At this current moment, there are a couple, maybe a handful of thrusters installed, but I think they haven't totally installed all of the thrusters. They do appear to be different. There are some pictures on the NASA spaceflight forums that showed what the thrusters look like, and they're currently just being run by some of those large black COPV tanks that you see attached to the vehicle. So on the left, you can see on the left-hand side of the vehicle, kind of in the bottom, you see a couple different COPVs. Those are those large composite overwrap pressure vessels, and that's basically a tank, a metal tank, wound really tightly with carbon fiber to keep it together, and those can hold very, very high amounts of pressure. And what that does then is, the cool thing is they basically just can tap right off of that and have a couple cold gas thrusters, and so they can compress nitrogen, or basically just air, just regular old Earth air, and just shoot it out of a de Lavelle nozzle, some kind of little propelling nozzle, and provide a decent amount of thrust. And that's basically all. Remember, Starhopper used a whole handful of thrusters from a Falcon 9. They just kind of stuck a bunch of Falcon 9 thrusters on those little pucks that have 4 different gas thrusters, and they used those. I think now they're kind of upgrading to a little bit bigger cold gas thruster. We don't know too much about these. They might just be a really cheap, simple way to do this testing, because we do think that soon they're going to hot fire some of the thruster and do a hot gas thruster, and we're seeing some of those thrusters now getting put onto the nose cone that will hopefully be installed on serial number 5. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on. It's kind of hard to keep track of it all. But yeah, so this is good. It's looking good. The condensation, once the condensation kind of calms down on the vehicle, or in that whole tank area right above me, once those clouds go away, it does seem like then we're within about 20 minutes. But we will see. Chad asks, will they ever get rid of the seam lines between stacks and between the rings? Most likely no. The rings and the welds there will most likely continue. At some point they might be able to make, taller rings and fewer welds, but yeah, it's hard to tell. I'm not entirely sure. But I think at this point it's a matter of manufacturing, and a matter of if they can bring in supply chain for a certain length and certain type of steel. If they could get a wider set of steel, or a wider, whatever it is, they can kind of just continually optimize it. And that's the beautiful thing about building a factory around your rocket, is you aren't committed to only this length of and band of steel and then having to weld that and then having to weld blah 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 for the rest of your life. It's like they could change it. They could easily change it in the future and say, if we don't want to use this type of steel, and we don't want to have it be this wide or this tall or whatever, things are pretty flexible in the SpaceX world. So, and Andrew in our Discord says the welds are already looking a lot cleaner than when they started. It's so true. If you look back, even if you look back at some of the, obviously Mark 1 and 2 were compared to this kind of a joke. And they're really more of I'll say a mock-up than a proper prototype. But serial number 1 looked quite a bit better. But if you look at serial number 4 compared to serial number 1 even, the progress is very obvious. And that's exactly what Elon said in the Starship event in 2018. He basically said, see this, it's really rough, but it'll look a lot shinier, a lot smoother, and we'll make rapid progression. Every single one that comes off the line will just start looking better and better. And that's literally exactly what's going on, is every time they're making one, they're making improvements, and they're learning how to build these things. And that's really that's the whole reason that rockets are so expensive in general, is because they're so bespoke. They're so one-off, and you build a rocket because this customer needs it, and so everyone, we have the tooling here, but we still need to put it all together. and it's never something that's been massively optimized for mass production. I will say that the Falcon 9 is probably the closest thing to that, at least in the modern era, because they did mass produce a lot of like Atlas missiles and Titan missiles back in the day. They kind of were starting to do some of that streamlining, but because it was like an advanced weapon system, it had, you know, military budget behind it. And now to try to bring it to the scale of being able to, say, go to Mars and go back to the moon and things, and really open up an economy, it's having to do it on a new level and on a sustainable business sense level. And one of the biggest reasons why SpaceX is utilizing the Raptor engine is because building many small engines is a lot cheaper than a few big engines. So you can produce the same amount of thrust, and then in the case of the Raptor engine versus the Merlin engine, they are increasing their efficiency by a lot too, by having the full flow stage combustion cycle (DDD) compared to the open cycle of the Merlin engine. If those words confuse you, if you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say open cycle, full flow stage combustion cycle, I do have that video about the Raptor engine that will run you through entirely why SpaceX is using such a complicated engine system, and runs you through the different cycle types and stuff like that. So yeah, massive improvements very quickly. It's really fun to watch this program because we get it, because we can watch it. We can see what's happening behind. There isn't a behind closed doors when it comes to this, since it's in a public space like this. And that's why it is so exciting. A lot of this stuff does happen with other companies. You know, I'm sure Blue Origin is literally doing very similar things behind closed doors. Same with ULA, with Vulcan. A lot of things, they might not be testing hardware to this degree, but they're making progress. We just don't get to see it, and that's definitely that is definitely the difference. So, yeah, yeah. Hopefully that helps. Graham Barker asks, why so many static fires for serial number 4? Hopper had one. Hopper had more than one static fire. Hopper had multiple, because they static fired it without a gimbal. They static fired it with a gimbal. Then they static fired it after the 20-meter hop. They static fired it at least 3 or 4 times, I believe. Someone will probably know exactly how many. I was there for a couple of them, I think. I think I saw a Raptor engine fire 3 times so far, because I saw the 20-meter hop, the 150-meter hop, and at least 1 static fire. And 1 fire when it lit on fire when a hose kind of came undone and the whole thing went up in flames. That was pretty fun. Yeah. Chad C. there, yeah, Graham, thank you. Kel Ove, here's a chip for a nice bottle of single malt for the 27th. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think a lot of people will need to be cheering, giving a good cheers to NASA and SpaceX when DM2 is successful, because that is a big milestone that we've been waiting for a very long time, to have multiple ways for humans to get into space. I mean, Soyuz has been incredible. Good thing Soyuz is still around, because otherwise, at least outside of China, we wouldn't have any other way to get to space right now. China has the Shenzhou and is working on kind of a version 2 of that vehicle, but currently we still are not cooperating with China. I personally believe that all space flight, I would love for international collaboration, including China someday. But I think we might need to make some improvements in some fronts. But yeah, it's just exciting to know there will be 2 more options coming online very soon for getting humans up to the International Space Station, of course, with the Crew Dragon capsule and Starliner. So, yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. And hey, how's it going? OLHZN Space Balloons. How are you? My plan for DM2 launch day. So, as I mentioned, I did get press credentials with NASA, and there's very few. They did not. It's like 1/10 the amount of people they normally allow on for a mission. So because of that, and because of that opportunity, I am going to be taking that opportunity, which does mean I will be driving down to Florida to witness DM2 and bringing you guys good coverage of it. I'll be doing the best job I can. I will not be able to do as good of a job as SpaceX and NASA covering the event, obviously, but I still likely will be using like a telescope and a few things like that to try to bring you guys some cool shots leading up to it. So fingers crossed for just a beautiful day and no scrubs. But I think if you're going to be watching my live stream, or I'll call it my live stream attempt, I hope that you're doing that mostly to see my reaction to it and not to try to get the best coverage. So a little bit of grace and a reminder for the audience watching that if I pull off a decent live stream, it'll be a miracle. Especially because right now my live view unit, my broadcasting unit, is down in Boca Chica. So there's a small chance I might have to I'm trying to get another one, but I might just have to have Gina and Rachel send me this one, which means we can't do two things at once. But hopefully, I am working on a couple other fun things, but unfortunately some of them are not going to be ready in time for DM2. But yeah, I do need to send, I feel like I have to say this every time I mention DM2. Again, if you are a member of the general public hoping to see DM2 with your own eyes, please just stay at home. Really, honestly, it is personal responsibility at this point for everyone. I know everyone's probably like, but if it's just me in a car, does it really matter? Yeah, it does matter because, Falcon Heavy had almost like 250,000 people come see it. And if even half of those people come, people were expecting about 500,000 or more to come down to the Space Coast. So if even half of them decide, I probably shouldn't or I should, that's still as many as Falcon Heavy. And that can overwhelm not only like restaurants and all that stuff, but then of course, if all of us are traveling during a pandemic, it can lead to some that can affect the local community, having 250,000 people come from all over, potentially transmitting a virus. So, and don't forget that could literally, you wanting to see a launch with your own eyes could end up making it so no one gets to see a launch because all of a sudden everyone at NASA and on the Cape is sick, and it goes into further lockdown and all of a sudden delays the whole space program by 3 months because everyone just had to go down there. And frankly, it won't be as exciting of a launch as even like a CRS mission where the booster comes back and returns to launch site. That is a lot more exciting to watch as far as a visual experience. Obviously, the emotional experience will be really strong. I've never personally watched humans get on a rocket and go to space. So that is something. I understand that there's a connection there, a physical connection of knowing that there's other humans on that vehicle that is having, 9 Merlin engines light up and ascended into space. I totally get it. But as far as visually what you're watching, I would say a CRS mission is going to be more fun because you get to see the return to launch site landing, or a Falcon Heavy mission is even more exciting because you get to see 2 boosters return to launch site landing. So that is my, yeah. Oh, Oliver is correcting my, thank you so much. The pronunciation of Shenzhou is actually Shenzhou. Thank you. I did not know that. Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, Playa Linda was absolutely jam-packed for Falcon Heavy. That would be very bad, if, as far as the pandemic goes. Okay, so that's my plan. So Davis, if not mistaken, limiting factor is rolling width. That very well could be. The width of how big of a machine to be able to roll the stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. That could very well be it. And thank you, Davis. Graham, thanks. I missed a few. Makes sense now. Good. So hopefully we're all on the same page here. It is all still looking good. We haven't really seen the venting per se, so on the vehicle too much yet, but it is still looking good. Okay, Sergio, thank you. Randy, I do not see landing legs for the hop. Can you explain the plan? Yeah, let me pull up Elon's Twitter here. He posted pictures a little while ago of it, but it's been a hot minute. But he posted the pictures, and then was it Raphael that was, or Kimmy definitely had some media of it right away, but here you go. I will pull this up for just a second because I don't want to miss anything on here. But so this is the aft skirt. This is where the engine is, and you can see here that there are these little square things. There's 6 of them. We can only see 5 on frame, and the other one's at the very, very tippity top. But those are landing legs that will pop down. So they are installed on the vehicle, but you just really can't see them. And I will hide this for a second while I search for Kimmy's Kimmy Talvitti. Let me look for that animation that Kimmy made. There we go. Of course. I love God, Space Twitter is the best. Okay, here we go. This is an animation from, I'll let it restart, or I'll pause it and get ready to play it. This is an animation from Kimmy Talvitti, and it shows you how the landing legs will work, although it seems to be kind of that bonked everything in life for some reason quick. Here we go. These are how the landing legs will work. They'll deploy out like this, and then it'll do that. Something similar to that. That's just kind of a guess based on those pictures, but Elon did even say, like, yeah, that's pretty close. So that's how those will work. Definitely check out Kimmy's work. He does incredible stuff. So Kimmy Talvitie, Talvitie, if you want to see more of that. But meanwhile, looks like, okay, so now that all the condensation is gone, everybody, that is a sign that they are loading it into the vehicle. So, so that's good. There we go. Oh yeah, and Casper Stanley even has another one too. Yeah, I'll show you guys. Jeez, Casper and Kimmy, how do you guys make these incredible animations so quickly? I do not get it. Jeez. Oh, sorry, there is some audio on that. I'm gonna mute that. I gotta show you guys this one too. It does that thing again when I do that. Hold on. So here we go. Look at this. Man, how do you guys make such good animations so quickly? Look at that. So this is what it will look like when there's eventually three Raptor engines. For now, there's only the one. But how cool is that? Okay. I better keep this up here. Sorry, my Twitter is exploding. Perfect. Okay. There you go. That's how the landing legs work. Now we are finally seeing venting on the vehicle. I think we're probably, honestly, within only a couple minutes now. Probably for sure within 10. Okay, cool. My guess would be... So now what we're waiting to see is the big flare, and that means 1 minute. Once the big flare is lit, it means we are 1 minute from static fire. So we're getting close. So keep your eyes on the flare stack right above my head. That will pretty much signal that we're 1 minute away. So everyone just keep your eyes peeled. I'll keep trying to read through the comments here. Warriston, adding to the single malt fund, thank you so much. Cartwright Reed, thank you. James H, Tim, you should wear your spacesuit for DM2. Maybe my spacesuit would finally come in handy for the first time. I think they should just require everyone wear a spacesuit, and then that'll, protect everyone. It's good for something. Thanks, James. MVC, Vulcan has robotic steel welding. Well, SpaceX, maybe eventually, once, I think they do actually have an automated machine, if I remember right, but I don't think they're going to really automate it too much until they figure out the best way to manufacture them. Once they figure out the manufacturing and how to mass produce these things at a rapid scale, then they can start to iterate more and more on some of the automation. But at this point, answering too much about the process is almost frivolous until they really get to the point where they're flying them and making them and things are working well. And then you can be like, okay, now how do we do this again and quicker, and do it again and quicker, and do it again and quicker? That's kind of the way they're doing this. It's a little bit different. Instead of being like, here is our final vehicle, how do you build this final vehicle? Instead it's like, no, let's get something to work, the cheapest, quickest path forward. And then from there, iterate on that. Make improvements, make improvements, make improvements. It's riskier, actually, to do it this way. And it costs more money up front because you're really inefficient. You're having to redo things often. And, you might design something and be like, okay, that's totally wrong. Redesign it. Okay, that's totally wrong. Build it one off. Okay, that's totally wrong. Build it. Okay, that's okay. Now let's make it better. Build it again. Make it a little bit better. Each time you're doing all these little processes. But at the end, because you're constantly iterating, you end up with what could be a really, really, more optimized for production. You can end up being more optimized for flight. And it's kind of the Elon Musk way. Look at Tesla. Watch how Tesla iterates on their projects. They just continually are like, oh, just tweaking this. Oh, just tweaking this. They don't do like a model year thing. There's no like, oh, the 2017 Tesla now has this. It's like, literally this car this month could have a totally different system than this car in this month, and they just kind of are constantly tweaking, making improvements. And that's the Elon Musk way. It's a software method, and it's kind of nuts. So Yeah, we're seeing that same thing with rockets. Good question, though. Let's see here. Todd Johnson, thanks for the membership. Jonas Ailson says, why would they even try to hop serial number 4 if RCS is being integrated into serial number 5? Why would they not just wait and not risk bad press so close to DM2? I don't know. I'm sure there's things that they want to validate on serial number 4 that they want to make sure work before risking serial number 5. Because you can look at it that way. It's like, why would they do a high risk of a more refined vehicle on serial number 5? If they can validate it on serial number 4, I think they're going to validate it on serial number 4. But I would not be surprised, to be perfectly honest, if it all comes to like, we kind of validated all these systems on serial number 4. Now let's put them on serial number 5 and do the work with serial number 5. I would not be surprised personally if serial number 4 doesn't hop. I see it both ways. It's just kind of hard to tell, to be honest. So the local time, by the way, is 2:26. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing's going around 2:30. We're just kind of waiting on that big flare, which, like I said, the big flare right up here behind the black tanks. That'll be about T-minus 1 minute. We do not have a published time. None of this stuff is published. This is just such a test vehicle that we're just literally like stalking it and trying to watch the test progress get made. So, yeah, there you go. Arvid Nilsson, will the crew bring hand sanitizers to the ISS? Well, the crew, Bob and Doug, are already in a full 2-week quarantine before launch where they will not be exposed to anybody. So that way they make sure that they're safe to go up to the International Space Station. And that's always the case, actually. Every launch to the ISS, the crew is quarantined beforehand so that they don't accidentally bring with them some kind of sickness or illness up to the International Space Station. And now we're seeing that pay off because they're already used to that procedure to make sure and keep the crew safe, because the crew's up there for 6 months. And you definitely don't want COVID going around on the International Space Station. That's for sure. That is for sure. So, okay, there we go. We got some extra venting up top. So that means that the methane tank is pressed for flight, most likely. As long as both vents don't go, normally, both venting tends to be detanking, it seems like. We might see that other one go for a little bit, but that probably means that they're topped off on methane. And, yeah. Oh, there's both. Hopefully that doesn't mean detanking. Oh, big flare. Okay, so that probably means topped off. Big flare. Okay, I think we're about a minute away. Okay, I'll get back to your guys' questions here after this, but I'm going to kind of tune in here. This is the exciting stuff, so... Here we go. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Ooh, I don't know, all that condensation around the pad or down in the tank farm. Something might not have worked again. Maybe I need to turn off the big flare. turn off big flare because it... They might be having to retop it or something. Because normally the condensation here means that all the big white condensation in the tanks typically means that there's that's where they're producing and pressurizing and getting liquid oxygen ready. So if they're doing that there, that probably means that they had to repress or something. Hopefully we see something here today. They do have until 4 local time, and it's 2:31. Yeah, let me... Okay. Sergio asks, is Crew Dragon to be reusable despite water landing? So they originally had talked about it being reusable. Then they kind of took back that and said that they would only refurbish and use it for cargo. And I think that's currently still where they're at, but they have the ability after a few refurbishments to maybe have NASA consider refurbishing safe enough for humans. But they could prove it out on cargo, because don't forget, this next round of commercial crew contracts, we're not going to see a Dragon 1 ever fly again. From now on, they will all be Dragon 2s, but they will be crewed or uncrewed. So it does seem like we have not heard the siren either. That is normally a sign of about T-minus 10 minutes. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question there. Daryl, thanks for the membership. James, for your DM2 stream, any new cell bundling backpack tech? It would be fun to license TLC's No Scrubs into your intro. I have, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that, because I will definitely get copyright strikes immediately. But I have just been using, the live view. I might be trying to pull together something here last minute. But yeah, like I said, I'm trying to kind of secure some kind of separate unit or something. Chris Gephardt on Twitter, from NASA Spaceflight, of course. SpaceX are starting to come out to watch Starship. Fueling is underway. So, okay, that's probably a good sign. That's a really good sign. So they haven't totally nixed. So hopefully we're still within, 10-ish minutes or so, 10, 20 minutes. So, yeah. Thanks again, though, James. Geek Till It Hurts, looks like Raptor Chill has begun. Yeah, sorry, any of these comments will be already out of date. I apologize. Ethan, when do you think the actual Starship will launch? We'll define actual Starship, because as far as first orbital launch, I would love to see an orbital Starship happen, at least an orbital Starship attempt to happen by the end of 2021. I know that Elon's saying this year still, and Elon will probably still say that up until December 10th or something, that they're going to try an orbital launch. I just think there's a lot of things they have to do before they get to that point. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's sometime next year. I could still see it happening next year, 2021. But at the same time, there's a lot of steps between here and there. There's a lot of things happening in the background, but a lot of things to happen between this and that. So, and that would be just still kind of a rough demonstration of the vehicle, and it'll just be continually refined from there. So that would I would say the first real, if we're going to say first Starship launch, or like the actual Starship launch, I'll define that as orbital, and I would say, So yeah, I mean, but if people are asking, as far as if we're just talking about just the Starship, where it's going to do like the belly flop, that should be this year still. I hope that the 20-kilometer hop happens this year. That is what I'm hoping for. I can still see that. That's supposed to be serial number 5, but I could still see that being 3 or 4 months away pretty easily, even if everything's going well, just because of how long it takes to do that. But I'd love to be proven wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if like August or something would be the large hop, and I will try to see that in person. David England, video spotlights. Those legs don't look big enough to hold something so large. Do they look small to you? It doesn't really matter what they look like. It matters how they're engineered, right? It matters what the anchor points are, how thick, all that stuff. Don't forget, this vehicle will never be fully topped off either. So it's not ever going to be full of fuel and therefore never that heavy. So it's dry mass. This one without all the extra hardware is probably under 100 tons. And then, I don't know, maybe another 100 tons of fuel or whatever, or a little bit less than that. And that's all the legs have to be able to handle is that amount. And the next, like Starship number 5 with 3 Raptor engines could hold up to, it could be about 600 tons in total weight. That's all those legs have. All those legs have to handle. So don't forget, they're not like, they might be small, but it really doesn't matter the size. It matters how they're engineered. Yeah. But a lot of people are concerned about how their base is not very big, hold on one second here. Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about the width, the actual like footprint of those legs. It's not very wide. But don't forget that a lot of the weight is so low. Those engines are so low. And it's a lot. Think about this. It's about as tall as the Falcon 9. And it's already a lot wider to begin with than the Falcon 9. So I'm guessing that the footprint is probably similar to the wide legs that the Falcon 9 has. And the Falcon 9 legs are very, very wide. Yeah. Baja Truck Guy says, Space Nerds Assemble. This is the place, to be amongst like-minded people that are excited enough to watch such, what could be boring to some, paint dry, basically, but at the same time, it's like really exciting stuff in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah. Thank you, Baja Truck Guy. Don Zandbergen. Hi, Tim. We are coming from Holland to watch DM2 live. Also, why no space elevator? You're coming. How are there even flights from Europe to the US? Like I said, I would please ask, unless you've already booked it and everything, and you're working or something. I am following what NASA and the administrator and all those people are asking for people to not come to DM2. I know I feel like I'm a broken record here, but unless you're there for work and are asked to come down, they are asking people to not come down, and I would like for everyone to heed that warning. Unfortunately, it really, really pains me to say that because it is so exciting, and I get why people want to come down. But again, if people during a pandemic are flying from all around the world, it just seems like that's just a recipe for disaster, unfortunately. But hopefully, Don, hopefully you have a reason, and hopefully. Otherwise, I will please advise people to not do that, though. Why no space elevator? It's a material science thing. It's very difficult. It's one of those holy grails. It's like the, fusion reaction type of holy grail. Once it's figured out, it's cool, but like getting to that step is very, very, very hard. A lot of it is, just how do you make something lightweight enough that it doesn't crush itself when you stack it on top of, obviously compression is a thing, and there's some extreme forces there. So let's see here. Let's see. Where are we? Sorry, I lost track. Killer N Killer and Miller Gaming. When you said serial number 5 would have much more intense testing, what do you mean by that? Like higher hops and more pressure? Love the streams. Thank you. So serial number 5 will already hopefully see some type of more advanced RCS. We're already seeing some of the RCS thrusters built into the nose cone. So hopefully we'll see more of those. It hopefully will be loaded with 3 Raptor engines, so it'll be a lot more moving parts, a lot more procedures, a lot more things that could go wrong. And that's why when I say like this stuff, you know, everyone thinks I'm being pessimistic if I say it's going to take a lot longer than what they think. It's just because, like, look at how hard it is just to fire a single Raptor engine. You know, it's still a new program. It's still a new vehicle. It's still a new, you know, a new everything, new ground systems, this vehicle's a month old. Like, they haven't worked out all the kinks to it yet, you know. So yeah. So but we will see. Yeah, so having 3 on there and maybe some aero hardware and everything, it will be yeah, it'll be very, very, very interesting. So it'll be a lot more, it'll honestly be a lot more exciting to watch than serial number 4 because it'll be closer to complete. So that will be fun. Code Zero, thank you. Hi, Tim. Could a non-modified Starship land on the moon? Likely not, because of how much thrust the Raptor engines produce. And that is something that I've been saying for a long time, and I even questioned Elon on it on Twitter, and he said it's not a big deal, you just cut the engines and let it fall. But then literally a month later we're seeing auxiliary engines that are really high up to not disturb and perturb, is that the right word, and make giant craters on the moon and kick up tons of regolith everywhere and making like semi-orbital bullets around the moon. It seems like for the moon, because of it, you know, it has no atmosphere at all. So if you kick something up really fast, it's going to stay kicked up until it, you know, either ejects from orbit or comes back around and like slams into somewhere, you know. So it's, yeah, I do not think an unmodified Starship will land on the moon, even though, unless there's landing pads. So someday they could build like a landing pad with like, you know, it'll be almost more like a landing tube, because they'd want to land somewhere where there's like a shield to protect debris from flying away, you know, as it's landing and stuff like that. So someday they could maybe land an unmodified Starship, but it will be something that will require more of an infrastructure to land on the moon. But that's why the lunar lander version of Starship has those auxiliary engines. So I think that's something, and that is something that NASA and SpaceX are studying together, is how do you land huge vehicles with that much thrust on the moon. So yeah, it also helps. I think NASA, I can't imagine NASA being a huge fan of like a suicide burn or a hover slam maneuver on the moon with humans on it. I think they would want some hoverability and some backup and some extra options. So having those auxiliary thrusters, deep throttle, who knows what they're going to be. Here's what I'm thinking. I was thinking about this last night, actually. How cool would it be? So I know that they want to do methane, you know, hot gas thrusters for their RCS, but the problem is if you have methane, hot gas, pressure fed wouldn't be very good at just 3 bar. If you're running it off the main tanks, it'll be very, very low pressure, very low thrust, because then even if you ignite your methane and your oxygen, you're only starting at 3 bar. So the chamber pressure cannot be higher than that. So you can't have very powerful hot gas thrusters if you're taking from the main tanks. So what if they, you know, had separate smaller tanks, kind of like COPVs or whatever, kind of like the Ullage tanks. What if, or the Ullage, or however you want to say it, what if you had those and they're constantly being recompressed and compressed into higher, and they could tap off and compress a small amount just for RCS using like an electric motor and an electric pump. I think that would be really cool. And then they could basically keep the best of both worlds, where they have infinitely refillable, basically, RCS tank feeding into these RCS gas thrusters. And they could be hot gas and have that spark plug ignition and everything, and they could be at fairly high operating pressures, and therefore they could get really high efficiency. They could repress these smaller tanks. That's something I don't know if that's ever been done. I don't know, but yeah, someone tell me. Someone tell me if that's ever been done before, where you're repressing like a COPV mid-flight using pumps or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I am not a rocket scientist, though, so I don't know if that's ever been done. Okay, Code Zero. Oh no, yeah, good question, Code Zero. Thank you. And Pal, thank you so much. Long live Norway. Love from Norway. That is awesome. Thank you so much. That is very, very generous of you. I really appreciate that. And I love Norway. Norway's gorgeous. Njordhog knows this. Big fan. Big fan. So thank you for saying hi. Kyle Strong, why don't they use grid fins at the top and bottom for Starship? It seems like a proven technology for steering balancing at this point. Well, the reason is this is not entering tail first. It's entering broadside first. So it's coming in. You want to utilize as much surface area as possible. And so therefore the control scheme is completely different. Grid fins work well when you have like a missile or a vehicle that has, you know, kind of like a dart. Think about a long vehicle like a dart, where you have a control surface in the back that's easily able to guide and point it, right? The grid fins are great for that. And grid fins are great for that because you can also tuck them in on ascent, so they don't have aerodynamic properties on ascent and they're not screwing with the aerodynamics, and then you can deploy them. That's the beautiful thing about grid fins. The problem is why we will not see that on Starship is Starship's not entering butt first. Starship is entering broadside, so it's coming in completely on its side, and so therefore it needs to control its drag. It needs to increase and decrease drag. So that's why I will use those fins, those upper fins and those lower fins. I have two videos that kind of talk a lot about this. I have a video why Starship will land like will fall like a skydiver and not fly like a space shuttle, and comparing the aerodynamic properties of Starship compared to the space shuttle, completely different systems. And then I also have another video about why Starship only has 2 rear fins instead of 3 now, because it kind of changed and it still goes into some of those similar aerodynamic properties. So yeah, that's why no grid fins. It's just and the thing with grid fins is they're not changing drag. They are actually inducing torque, or inducing aerodynamic flow through those grids. Those lattices are basically like hundreds of little wings, hundreds of little lifting bodies, basically, or little control surfaces. And when you change them, you're not increasing or decreasing drag. You're actually deflecting the wind stream, and therefore inducing roll, yaw, pitch. You can do it all with those. And that's just not the control mechanism that they would have. In order to make grid fins work, you'd almost have a tower sticking off one side and put them way back, but still you'd have to keep them in the wind stream. Yeah, and it wouldn't really work through hypersonic reentry as well, or through. It'd be really hard to keep them from melting. But yes, Dustin the Now does say, yes, of course, Super Heavy will have grid fins. The booster part will still have massive grid fins, and that makes sense because it's still following tail first. It's basically like a scaled up Falcon 9 booster. It's suborbital, so it doesn't have to worry about those extreme reentry forces, so it'll still hold up fine as far as that goes. But it does enter engine first, so it is that pencil style or that dart where it's got a mass at one end and it can guide and point using just the control surfaces at the top. So it's different than the Starship upper stage. The upper stage is a completely different vehicle almost. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer that question. Mr. Anderson, indeed, cheers from Norway. Love your streams. By the way, I didn't your tweet about your stickers. Maybe I didn't like your tweet about my stickers. I don't know if I know what you're talking about. But thank you, Mr. Anderson. Yeah. Let's see. Awesome. We have a new... Hi, Tim's long-lost stepbrother in Discord. How are you guys? By the way, we're starting to hear some rumors of no static fire today. It looks like they have not fully detanked yet, though, have they? They might still be going for it, actually, because they have another hour and 10 minutes to refuel and try again. So we will see. I'm going to reset this, though, because we are not seeing... If we see personnel heading back to the pad, that's going to be the calling it for the day for sure. But for now, we're just going to pull these back. We'll see. We'll see. So, Johan Ul or Johan KL, sure. We just got a NOTAM for a 150-meter hop on Thursday. Yes, and that might happen if static fire goes well today, and a few other things. They can file these things all the time. That really, remember this, the schedule is milestone based. So I know we all get excited when we see things like road closures and NOTAMs and stuff like that, but so much of it, like, get excited knowing that it's more imminent after a successful static fire. So it'd be great if it happens Thursday, but at this point, we're kind of waiting, you know. So yeah. Oh yeah, and people were asking in Discord, talking about just read the instructions, and of course they still love you. The two drone ships, why they are? Oh, there we go. There's detanking likely happening. There's detanking. Okay. There it is. So my guess is they're probably done for the day, but we will have to see. Come on, do something. But yeah, so Thursday might happen if static fire happens today, but if no static fire today, I'm guessing Thursday will not be a thing either. So one step at a time. If this is indeed happening, I will throw up. People are in Discord are asking me to do a KSP. I will try one more attempt at redoing this launch. What we'll see soon with a 150 meter hop. I'll show you guys how you can fly with an offset engine. I'll show you guys kind of what they're going to do with a single engine. So yeah, let me keep getting through you guys' stuff here. Dieter, what was the average flight speed of an unladen swallow? I mean, it depends. What type of coconut is it flying with? Oh, unladen. So, yeah, I mean, pretty fast, you know. Thanks, Dieter. Nolan, a bit off topic, but do you think that Blue Origin will ever be part of a commercial crew program? They might, but I think NASA's probably starting to wind down on the commercial crew program and starting to ramp up Gateway and just future Mars missions, of which, of course, Blue Origin will have a big part of, I think. I definitely think, in my opinion, that that the Blue Origin lunar lander, the national team concept or national concept, is a really, really, really solid plan, and I think that might very well be the one that returns humans to the moon for the first time. It just seems really well put together and very well developed already. So hey, awesome. Welcome. We have a lot of new Discord members. If you guys do want to join our awesome community of fellow space enthusiasts, I'll say enthusiasts instead of nerds, because I'm a huge nerd, but I don't know if everyone else wants to be classified as a huge space nerd. But I will say space enthusiasts. If you want to come hang out with us and just kind of have a really fun, dedicated community, then go to patreon.com/everydayastronaut, and you can gain access to our Discord channel. And yeah, nerd is a badge of honor. Enthusiast, nerd, geek is the order. I like that. That's awesome. But yeah, we have an awesome community. If you guys want to join, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. That also helps me continue to upgrade as I'm working on a new studio space that hopefully I will have close to done beginning of July, if everything continues nominally or normally. And yeah, if you also want to help do what I do and help me pay Rachel and Gene and stuff like that, you can go to everydayastronaut.com/shop, where you can get some awesome merchandise, including, unfortunately, we have masks now, because that's a thing that we have to deal with as humans, I guess. But since everyone's having to wear these, we decided we're going to make them space and nerdy fun. So we have things like warning: failure to equalize pressure before unlatching can result in crew injury and equipment damage. It's basically just this exact sticker from the International Space Station on the hatch, which I think is fun. We have our normal one, and another one: do not open except for use or inspection, cleaned for pressurization service. And if you work in the aerospace industry, you can click here and take 50% off, which is getting them at cost pretty much. And that's my thank you to you guys for helping us get into space, But yeah, and we also have new shirts like the Future Martian Society new shirt. This is based on SpaceX's plans of where they are currently planning to land Starship for the first time, which is Arcadia Planitia, and the exact coordinates are there for the Prime A candidate landing site. This shirt's going to be awesome. They are shipping this week now, so they also have on it some specs for Mars, the gravity and the atmosphere composition of Mars, and a reminder: not suitable for EVA use, life support required. So if you end up being on the prime crew, the first ones to land on Mars, maybe you can wear this in preparation for that and then wear it on Mars. That'd be awesome. I'd love it. Please buy this. If you're planning to live on Mars, please get this and put it in a shelf and then wear it when you land on Mars. And I will absolutely cry and lose my mind. That would be insane. So yeah, everydayastronaut.com/shop. We have some of the coolest merch available, including the shirt I'm wearing right now, the full flow stage combustion cycle shirt. Definitely about the coolest shirt ever. So yeah, there we go. That's that spiel. So I think since we're just now seeing the D-Tank, we can do some Kerbal if you guys want. I'll play a little bit of Kerbal. And I do need to finish these though, don't I? Kevin Ray, thank you. Mr. Anderson, will it be a big flare whenever the methane tank is full? Maybe they are fueling both tanks. So, was that the RCS again? Yep, it was. They're totally detanking, aren't they? 100%. I had to show you guys what Njordhog, I never know how to say it. Sorry, I'm Photoshop guy. Did in our Discord. This is hilarious. Oh, this is good. I love that. Come on, do something. I love that. That is great. Okay, so in general, will it be a big flare whenever the methane tank is full? So it seems like once the methane tank is full, any extra pressure in line gets vented out. You know, it seems like they're pressing the vehicle for flight, and then it's like, oh, it's full, and then there's still all this buildup of pressure, and they need to vent that. That seems to be what the big thing is. But I don't know for sure, but that's the thing I can expect. I don't know. Let's see. Daniel Carroll wants to know the spelling on my hat is this nominal. It's based on something that John Innsbrucker accidentally used, the term mixing up nominal and normal. He accidentally said nominal on Intelsat 35E on July 5th, 2017. And here's John Innsbrucker sporting that beautiful, beautiful hat. But yeah, that's what nominal is. It's just kind of like a nerdy space inside joke thing. And now you know. Mixture between normal and nominal. Baja Truck Guy tank, then a... Wait, where did that go? Where did that go? Tank, then a D-tank, then tank. We'll see. At this point, we're only seeing them D-tank. And with 1 hour left, I'm personally not really seeing it happening today, but we will see. We will see. Scott, will they keep the engines in Dragon for cargo? I think so. I don't remember, actually. I feel like that's changed. I've heard it both ways. I think that was one of the exciting things, is they would have the abort option for cargo, but I don't know for sure. We will have to find out, because I don't remember. I think I remember seeing it both ways, but I did not miss the RCS. I saw the RCS. It happens. That's what told us that they're fully detanking, was the RCS. The casual, why do you think that SpaceX hasn't used a single weld hull as promised by Elon during Starship? Could it still happen? No, this is a single weld hull. He wasn't talking about a single weld like for the entire vehicle, because that would require the biggest piece of stainless steel ever. He was talking about a single weld to make each ring section. Go back and listen to the presentation. He's talking about instead of like plates like they were using for Mark 1 and Mark 2, talking about taking giant ring sections and having a single weld make these rings and then stacking rings. So they are doing that now. They've been doing that ever since the serial number 1 stuff. So yeah, there you go. This is the single weld hull. Because there's, single vertical weld. Thomas Schumann, Zubrin suggests today in Space News op-ed to use Starship as fuel depots for Artemis instead of a lander. My thoughts. A lander can make sense because it has such incredible performance. I could see it being a while, though, before it, who knows, maybe all this said and done, it is just simply too big of a vehicle to land on the moon without a proper landing infrastructure. So it might be something that they have to, have a landing infrastructure first before they land full-blown starships. So, maybe in that case, it would be a great fuel depot. But if you can land it on the moon, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have that capability of tons, so much payload capability to the surface of the moon, and a ton of a pressurized volume too, just for crew habitats and crew safety and stuff. It makes sense, but I'll have to read that through. And Zubrin is pretty well. His opinion's usually a pretty good blend of radical and conservative as far as space travel is concerned, at least. So he seems to be. I tend to agree with a lot of his assessments of space plans, but we'll have to see how that turns out. Leave Tracks, thank you so much. Odin Haru, when do you think humans will be on Mars? I answered this just a couple hours ago. I would love if humans could touch down before 2030, but at this point, we'll see. I'm still hopeful that by December 31st, 2029, there will be humans standing on Mars. That is just my my current hopes, but we will see. That's my best guess right now, and my I'd love that, but we'll have to see. Thank you, Odin. Henning, Lang lebe Deutschland, great show. I hope that means something cool in German, and I didn't just say something about jeez, my Discord is going crazy with some really good photoshops. Oh man, Nordhog, you might have a little duel here with Derek. This might be. Oh man, I said long live Germany. Okay, now I know what I said. Sounds like okay, I guess everyone's making me say long live and their country now. I guess that's the new cool thing to do. Adam, will it hit ludicrous speed? This vehicle should not hit ludicrous speed. This vehicle should be a nice, simple, gentle 150 meter hop in the relatively near future. Tyler Wallenstein, excellent work, Tim. Thank you very much. MP God, how's it going? New member Ben, new membership. Thank you. Ethan Anderson, hey Tim, why are launch pads generally at low altitudes? Shouldn't we be far out of Earth's gravity well as possible at launch? Well, in order to get out of our gravity well, you have to be basically at a Lagrange point would be the only place where that's kind of possible, to be kind of balanced out of our gravity well. If you go on top of the highest mountain, the amount of gravity compared to sea level is like 0.001% or something, because of the inverse square law. You only if you go twice as far away from a planetary body or the center of mass of that planetary body, you don't really decrease the effect that gravity has on you at all. So standing on a mountain, you still weigh virtually the same as standing not on a mountain. So it's not gravity that you'd be escaping. The bigger thing you're trying to escape at that point by gaining altitude isn't gravity, but it would be atmosphere. You do decrease the amount of atmosphere you have to fight against. You could use a more overexpanded nozzle, a more vacuum optimized nozzle if you started at a higher altitude. That's the main advantage that you gain when you're doing air launching, which is a topic I will be talking about, is air launching. But the bigger thing is logistics. How are you going to get a massive rocket, a massive launch pad up on top of a giant mountain in the middle of nowhere, or whatever, far away from most society? All of a sudden your crew now has to drive 4 hours each way to work to get on top of this mountain to go tinker with the launch pad. Or they have to fly a helicopter there, which is extremely expensive. Get this rocket up there, which is, you have to have this crazy mechanism to get the rocket on top of Mount Everest or whatever. And then now all of a sudden you're launching from a mountain that's in the middle of in the middle of land, and now you're launching a rocket on top of land over populated areas, potentially dropping your rocket boosters on cities. Like, all of these things, it's just generally, and you don't really gain that much efficiency. You really only gain a little bit of not having to fight against the air friction in the lower atmosphere, and you can use a slightly expanded nozzle, or you can just make the rocket like 4% bigger and just have it be on the ground. And that's the consensus that really everyone's come to, is just do it on the beach next to the water where you're not worried about crashing on people, unless you're in like Kazakhstan where they let them fall in the middle of the Kazakh desert or whatever. And China sometimes occasionally has the bad habit of having the boosters fall on villages. Although they're trying to avoid that now, they're starting to add some grid fins so they steer away from villages and things like that. And they also have a launch site over water now, finally, thankfully. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure, Andy Law, I'm sure that Gray Bush Gamer would love for me to get to a super chat. I'm trying to get through them. Don't worry. I'm trying to get through these. But good question, Ethan. I will be doing an upcoming video about air launching, so don't you worry, and that will kind of answer a lot of those questions, but in greater detail, and have some physics examples too. Callum Bell, hello from South Africa. Thank you again, Callum. How are you? Bram Nada, thanks for covering this, Tim, and a shout out to all girlfriends who are stuck watching Starship because of their man like mine now like this tank. Oh man, I don't know if we're going to have to happen today. I apologize on behalf of you for your girlfriend that she's stuck watching a shiny tank have some fuel put in it occasionally, and maybe occasionally light a little bit of a fire in the bottom end sometimes. But thanks for saying hi, Bram or Bram. Moat Copening. Do you guys I feel like I'm just so bad at pronouncing names. I'm so sorry. Hey man, really love your vids. I hope I can check out a SpaceX launch in person sometime in the future. Greetings from Austria. Ooh, I love Austria. I was just there last year, and we had a great meetup. Like 50 people came out to a meetup in Vienna, Austria on like a Monday night or something. That was great. Super fun. So thank you, Mo. Callum again. Let me do this again. Hello from the many South Africans in this chat. Oh, that's super cool. Hello, all South Africans, and welcome. Dan Ketchum, won't first Starship have far less than 100 people? Yes, the first Starships will likely have far less than 100 people. Especially the first like flights with people, they'll want to have low risk and stuff like that. So they'll just start to, end up adding to it and adding capacity. But with 1,000 cubic meters, it'd be no problem to put 100 people on it, especially for a relatively short trip. Speaking of trip, Jeffrey Tripp, how many world clocks do you have on at the ready? Honestly, I really only follow UTC and Central Standard Time or Central Time or whatever. So, yeah, that's really about it, to be honest. But yeah, thank you. Gabriel, do you think the purpose of the Apollo missions was checking if living on the moon could be possible? Love your channel. Gabriel, I don't think the Apollo missions were necessarily to check if it was possible to live on the moon. We can pretty much determine that based on ground observations, really. We know what this environment of space is like. We know how much gravity was. The main thing that the Apollo missions, I guess, figured out was what the composition of the actual moon was made out of. So as far as did they go there to figure out if we could live there, I don't think so. It was more the achievement and kind of the one-upsmanship of the Cold War era, honestly, fueled a lot of that. But then, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was ever like, we're going to go to the moon to see if we can live on it. Like, I think it was a pretty known conclusion at that point, knowing at least the struggles or what would need to be done to live on the moon. So, yeah. Good question, though. Gray Bush Gamer, if they do a static fire, will you clip that pointy... Jeez. Gray Bush Gamer, if they do a static fire, will you clip that and post it by itself? I will be... we film these in 120 frames a second, 4K, so we will then upload the 4K version when they static fire, when we catch one. So we did that last static fire we caught, and hopefully we'll be doing that next static fire we catch. And of course, again, with the 150 meter hop, that is definitely something we will be doing. So stay tuned. Joe Dog McKeel, do you remember flying a shuttle booster on Kerbal? Is stainless steel reentry the same principle? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I have a video. Remember, I have a video exactly titled "Why Starship Will Fall Like a Skydiver and Not Fly Like a Space Shuttle," because it is in no way similar to the Space Shuttle. Please watch that. It'll answer every question you have. Every question you have. Why Starship will fall like a skydiver and not land like or fly like a space shuttle. So definitely watch that. Type it in right now. Remind yourself, and it'll tell you everything. So yeah. Hopefully that helps you exactly everything. There you go, Joe Dog. Darren, thanks for the membership. C. Craig, do you think SpaceX will ever provide watchers a HUD of altitude and speed of stage 1 as its journey back to Earth for landing? SpaceX has done that. There's been missions where they follow only stage 1. As a matter of fact, let me think about this. I think OTV 5, or hang on. I believe SpaceX OTV 5 did exactly that. It followed only stage 1. Let me see here if I'm right. Boom, boom, boom. This is why you come here, cause Tim remembers the weirdest things. Boom, look at this. OTV 5, SpaceX, stage 1. We have the telemetry through the entire re-entry and everything. So yes, do I think SpaceX will ever provide watchers a HUD of altitude and speed of stage 1 as it journeys back to Earth? Yes, because they have. But in general, in the future, I think at some point it would be really cool if they can mix and match a little bit. So and be able to show both on screen. But I think that's something that they would like to have happen, and I'm not sure if they're going to have happen, but maybe someday. I would love that. I think a lot of us would enjoy that too. Kim, thank you for the membership. Dieter, no equatorial mountain ranges that are easy to access. Velocity gain at equator is greater than altitude bonus. Absolutely. You're right. Launching from the equator is definitely a bigger delta V bonus than launching from a mountain, for sure. But yeah, it just really doesn't make sense, honestly. It's not worth all the extra complexity when you could just make the rocket a little bit bigger. Dieter McPherson. Oh yeah, that was the one. Thank you, Dieter. Ty Blankenship, thanks for the membership. Tater Tot, thank you for the pair. Working out? Yeah, absolutely. Belaze Zabo, greetings from Hungary. Cannot wait for Crew Dragon Demo 2 for DM2. I know it's going to be, it honestly will be amazing. So I can't wait for it either. Crispy Bacon, do you enjoy bacon? Oh, that's the greatest pig that's ever lived. Crispy Bacon. Thank you so much. Infinite's Loop, please do a video about how you create my music. I would have to, I'd definitely want a second channel to do something like that, because I just feel like that's something that is too far off tangent from the normal audience and all that stuff. But maybe someday I will. Maybe. I don't know. I just feel like that's already a maybe. We'll see. So here's what we're going to do. But thank you, Infinite Loop. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's better people, better musicians, and better producers out there that, way better producers and way better musicians that will teach you that stuff a lot better than I can. So just in case something happens, I will pull this up and show you guys. Let's replicate exactly what's going to happen when they do the actual thing. That's the wrong one. Let's do one of these. I'm going to flip it so it looks uniform. So I'm going to stretch this one a little bit compared to the last one, and we'll show you how they can launch Starship with an engine off center like this. So notice the engine's quite a bit off center, and in relative, I don't really know if that's at all accurate compared to how far off center Starship is on this, but it is quite a bit off center. But we'll still show you the same principles of how that's possible. Now we need to make sure our thrust to weight ratio is above 1. There we go. And do we have enough fuel? There we go. Plenty. So we have, let's go ahead and add, so we have some RCS thrusters here. Let's make it 8. And actually, let's go ahead and just roll these so we have some roll control too. There we go. Now we have really 16 gas thrusters. Nice and simple. We have one engine offset. So you can tell it's offset there. It's not going through the center. And you can also tell, you can look at the center of mass, of course, of the vehicle. It's basically right down the center. A little tiny bit offset because of that engine, but tiny bit. But you do notice our thrust is completely offset. Our thrust does not go up through the center of the vehicle. And how do you fly with a rocket where the thrust is going offset? Because you'd think it would just go like this. And that's actually let me show you. That's exactly what would happen if it could not gimbal. And if we did not have RCS, it would do exactly that. Oh my word. Discord, you guys are going crazy. What is happening? A trebuchet for Starship? Just to get it to yeet? I love it. Justice S, thank you for the membership. That is awesome. Why is that happening? Sorry, guys. I will put on Do Not Disturb. Okay, so first off, I'll show you what happens if they could not gimbal the engine if they did not have RCS and the engine was offset. It would do exactly this. 3, 2, 1, hit pip. And it would flip right over because it's off. The thrust is offset. So hopefully that's not what we see. So let's go ahead and revert that launch and do it again, and I will show you. The road is opening. Okay, so we need to change that altogether. 1 second here. So personnel is not clear. We are back down to just the pointy end up, flamey end being down. Okay. Wah, 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 wah. So no test today. Sorry, everybody. But good news is we can do this now without fear of repercussions. Okay, so how can you make a vehicle fly straight up and down that has offset thrust like this? So I'm going to make it so that the computer wants to hold the nose straight up. And by doing that, here, let me move this up a little bit. So what it's going to do is it's going to gimbal the engine to point through the center of mass. But of course, when it does that, it will also introduce some side motion. But we can offset a little bit of that using RCS. So having the reaction control thrusters at the top can help keep it so that it actually pitches the vehicle over. So the vehicle will be at a little bit of an angle. So the center of thrust points it basically straight up. So let me go ahead and launch this baby. If I go ahead and give it full thrust, 3, 2, 1, hip hip. And you'll notice, look at that. It pretty much, it still flies a little bit sideways, but that's okay because it will be translating sideways anyway, but we can offset some of that by going like this and just kind of tilting it sideways and getting rid of that velocity. Hopefully a computer does a better job than I do, but that kind of shows you about how they can do that. And again, if we were to take right back off and not hit this flagpole, which might be a bit of a concern, let me try moving it out of the way right away. Get out of here, get out of here. Okay, now get out of there, get out of there. Okay, so we can actually make it totally stop and fly only straight up and down. We just have to account for it right off the get-go. So we have to have the engine gimbaling and have it flying a little bit crooked. And it's really not a huge deal. Okay, so let me, oopsies. The legs spring a lot. Okay. For those of you unfamiliar, this is Kerbal Space Program. It is kind of a simulator game type of thing, and it can teach you a lot about, obviously, the physics and a lot about how things are going to be working. But so if I throttle this up and I lean opposite of the way that it's, let me see, which is this way. You know, if I pull back like this on the sticks, so I'm kind of hitting S, which will make it, so look at that right there. We can basically make it take straight off. Even though it's offset, we can pretty much make it fly straight up. And if obviously a computer has a lot finer control than I do. A computer can automatically do that. I'm having to like click it a whole bunch. And I'm unfortunately not as good as a robot, but you can pretty much fly this thing straight up and down. But you have to have RCS and your engine be able to gimbal in towards the center of mass, and then it's really no big deal. So that's how that'll happen right there. And hopefully we see a flight go like that, and that'll be super, super fun. Han says, to get me to stay on Mars for 20 years, I would need 900 Tamiya scale model and RC kits, paints, tweezers, paints tweezers and 100 books and Martian Starlink internet. Well, unfortunately, you're forgetting one thing. Your RC planes and helicopters and stuff will not work very well on Mars because it only has 1% atmosphere. You'd have to fly indoors if you wanted stuff that works here on Earth. Granted, NASA on the next Mars mission is, and I've seen it with my own eyes, is launching a helicopter, kind of. It's like a dual rotor. I picked up the rotors, and it is literally like, it feels like it's made out of nothing. It's unbelievably light. They have to have a huge lifting surface to be able to fly with just 1% atmosphere. It's really, really cool stuff. So you wouldn't be able to use your normal, like a normal plane, a scale plane would not work on Mars, unfortunately. You'd have to factor it in to be able to work in 1% atmosphere. So yeah, I'm sorry to tell you, you might want to reconsider living on Mars for 20 years. Yeah. Corey E, thanks for the membership. And Unordinary Programmer, how's it going again? Tim, thank you for everything you do. If it wasn't for people like you, Marcus House, Scott Manley, I don't know if I'd ever regain so much interest in space. Best regards from Croatia. Dang, that is... I'm really, really glad that so many people are getting so excited about spaceflight again. Like I said, I've said this quite a few times. I personally didn't really care at all before about 2014. 2013 or so is when I really started to pay attention. 2014 is when I was like, oh, this is awesome, and really became obsessed. And I'm glad that so many other people are starting to pick up on the interest because it is really exciting times. We're seeing a new era of spaceflight literally emerge before our eyes. It's not quite as flashy as the Apollo program, where it was the headline of every single news and everything was just about, the Mercury and Gemini program and the Apollo program. But, at the same time, I think it's really exciting still, and it's more sustainable, and it will just be a more part of everyday life as far as, it's normal to go to space in the near future. And I can't wait. Discord, this is ridiculous. You guys are losing your minds. I love it. Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and call it a day since nothing happened again, unfortunately, which means we'll be fingers crossed for tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and tune out so that Rachel and Jean can pack up and rest and head home. Van wants to know, how is it that my camera is so much better than NASA's space flight? Well, we're using a pretty high-end camera. I sent Rachel and Jean a nice slow-mo, 4K camera, and I don't know. It's a really nice camera, I guess, and Jean and Rachel are kicking butt operating it too. So remember, this is a good reminder to please find them on Twitter, Spadre. Go surfing with them if you ever go to South Padre Island. Hit them up, Space Padre Isle on Twitter. Awesome people. Everyone say thank you, Rachel and Jean, for all their hard work. It is hot, and they are out there sweating for us to be able to do this. So, I think that's probably going to be it. And hopefully we'll pay attention to tomorrow, see if tomorrow is going to happen or not. Meanwhile, I have a lot of other work to catch up on because this is quite time consuming. So I'm scripting a video. I might be able to try to shoot the reshoot part of Starship versus SLS before I leave for DM2. And if I'm able to do that, I'll reshoot it. I will have Andrew start editing it together. And and that will be awesome. And then maybe I'll have part 2 out pretty soon. It will be really exciting, comparing Artemis versus Apollo, getting really into the costs of SLS and Orion, and then the human lander system, and seeing if that will be more sustainable than the Apollo program, because we know the costs in the long run of exactly how much the Apollo program cost. So we can kind of extrapolate out and figure out how expensive Artemis will be, and if it is really more sustainable than Apollo, if we're just making the same mistakes over and over again. So I did a really, really deep dive on the cost of this stuff. I had to retweak a few things now that we're seeing a few more things come out in the past couple months, but it's very much in the works. So I think that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and again, thanks Rachel and Jean for all everything you're helping us do. And let me guys know if you guys have any questions on Twitter or anything, but I'm going to head out here. But if you want to join the conversation and continue talking with other people about this, patreon.com/everydayastronaut is the best Discord community. And I just love all you guys down there. So thank you guys. That's going to do it for me. Yeah. Maybe we'll see you guys tomorrow. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Bye.